Hi everyone, Andy Miller here from Calvary Church in Claremorris. It's been a hard year, hasn't it? All we've heard about is the virus and people dying and infection and loneliness and job losses and people maybe getting depressed and people finding it difficult and challenging. And yet in the last week or so we've had some good news, haven't we? A glimmer of hope, a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. A vaccine has been found. A vaccine's going to be rolled out soon, and we're looking hopeful. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Well, 800 years before Jesus was born, the prophet Isaiah spoke about that light that was going to come into the world. He said in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 2, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned." And then down in verse 6 it says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Isaiah spoke to the people and he said there's a light that is coming, a light in the darkness, a great light for those people that live in the land of the shadow of death. And that light would be a child. It says, "To us a child is born, to us a son is given." That light would be a baby boy, given to us, given by God, a gift from God. And that child would have the government on his shoulders. He would be in charge, and he would rule. Sometimes we wonder who's in charge. Have you ever thought that this year? Who's in charge of the world? Is anybody in charge? Does anybody really know what's going on? Well, this child has the government on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor. Oh, he's the Wonderful Counselor. He cares so much about you. He knows all about you, and he can give wise counsel. He loves you, and if you ask for him, for his help, then he will give you his help. He will be called the Mighty God. He will be in charge of all things. He will rule over all things, and he will be God himself. He will be called the Everlasting Father. He will be all that a good father is and more. A good father cares for his children. He's compassionate and kind. He provides for his children. He disciplines his children. He looks after them and he cares for their needs. And so our relationship with Jesus is like that relationship with a perfect Father. And that relationship goes on forever. He will be called the Prince of Peace. Peace on earth, the angels said. He can bring peace to earth. He can bring peace to our lives, peace with God, and peace in our hearts. And so 800 years after Isaiah spoke about this light that was to come, the baby Jesus was born in Bethlehem, born in a stable, placed in a manger. And he grew up and he lived the perfect life. And he died on the cross for your sin and for mine. 3 days later he rose again from the dead, and he ascended into heaven, and he is in heaven now. And he is still the light. He calls each of us to come and to put our trust in him, to come to the light, to ask him to come into our lives, to take away our sin, and to bring us into the light. And when we do that, he will be all that it says here and more. He will be the Wonderful Counselor, our Mighty God, our Everlasting Father, and our Prince of Peace, and so much more beside, forever and forever. So you can know that light in your heart. You can know him as your Father, your everlasting Father. Will you come to him today? Put your trust in him and come to the light, and you'll find that he is all of this and so much more. Thank you for listening. Join us again next week when we'll talk about something else, another name that was given to Jesus.